Jesus.
Thanks for sharing.
Here we go. Oh, here we are. Okay, we're Thursday, which means that Joe and I are off tomorrow and Saturday. And we've got all this cold air that's come on in. It was a pretty windy day up in the Northeast. I saw some gusts of 40 miles an hour in a few places late this morning. But we're going to gradually moderate and we'll look ahead to the weekend and the long range. And by the way, I do have things to say about the long range. Okay. And we're going to do it right off the bat. Tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which, by the way, you can easily support us where it doesn't cost you one thin dime, not even a penny. Okay? Nothing. If you shop Amazon, use our referral link that's pinned to the top of the chat boards. Use the search bar, get your stuff. Amazon throws us a little bit of coin for sending you there, and it's out of their pocket and not yours. It's a great, easy way to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Okay, I got to say
And
something about it.
before you say something, two things. Number one, I did not know. I don't know if you knew. Birder Lady on the chat board said, thought I had posted this, but maybe not. Finally out of the hospital after three, not one or two, but three surgeries, and I am now in rehab. I'm hoping everybody is well, and we want to wish Birder Lady all the best.
All the
And
best to Birder Lady.
so we
Come on,
didn't. We
spread your wings and fly home, Birder Lady.
Yes, indeed. And what you're about to talk about, the very next comment on the chat board from our dear friend Cecilia Hernandez saying, quote, hearing talk on Facebook about a snowstorm, a big one on
All
December
right.
21st. Anyone know about that?
I think we
Now,
should.
I'm going to
Since,
proceed to you.
Yeah, well, because you can ask. Actually, we should forward these to Vincent Croce on the chat board because he's always throwing up the 50-inch Boston forecast from last year. Well, we pretty much got that even, if not beat, because this is a little more personal. All right, Cecilia, please pay attention to this, okay? Because I'm going to just say I said this last night, and I'm going to say this again for your benefit and for the benefit for all of us. If a snow map is not within 72 hours, you know, it becomes valueless. All right. Particularly once you start going out 7, 8, 9, and 10 days, it's sheer nonsense. Okay. And this is what's happening. And it's not just these snow maps, Joe. People are putting up, they're getting the
Yeah.
European weeklies that go out 6 weeks. They're going getting the monthlies, which go out I don't know how many months, and they post these maps, and it's just nonsense. Not a single map that has been posted so far this year anywhere that I have seen in whatever time frame, in whatever range, has been even close to being correct. Okay. And it's a no-brainer if you put snow over the Great Lakes. It's a lot tougher for everybody else. So there's that.
David Fuller, by the way, hitting super chat, and he says, "Hey Joes, did you see the 12Z GFS? I'm
Right,
getting 53 inches
right.
on the
Hey,
23rd, 24th of December."
hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is our pivotal weather. That's the model source that I use and I have a license for, so that I can show it here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Now, these were snow amounts, and in fact, before I even show you this, let's go back to the 12Z GFS, and I'll use the tropical tidbits because that at least is, that gives you a good visual here. So this is Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. A front comes through Thursday and stalls out. You get a wave that develops on it and runs up northeast. Rain changes to snow on the backside, except near the coast, and then it goes on its merry way. However, there's a lagging upper trough on the GFS on the 12Z run that forms a huge cutoff, and you can see the snow that breaks out in Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northeastern Arkansas, and into western North Carolina. Okay, a low forms off the southeast coast, and it starts snowing Sunday morning on the 22nd, and the storm just sort of lifts up northeastward. We get into really heavy snow, and it doesn't stop snowing until the morning of Christmas Eve. Okay, so um, first of all, you're asked to you're asked to believe that it's going to snow pretty much for 2.5 days straight, possibly three. And I can only think of a couple of instances where that happened in my lifetime in the New York City, Long Island, Hudson Valley, Eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England area. So right there, that tells you that there's something wrong with this. Okay. Uh, Second of all, uh, the very next run, the very next run on the GFS for the same time frame, nothing. It has a high over there. Instead of having a storm, it's got high pressure building across the south. Nothing. Zero. Nada. And this was the snow map that was produced by that particular run of the GFS, which has 28.4 inches for New York City, 25.6 for Yonkers, 20 for Bridgewater, New Jersey, 20 for Brentwood, 36.7 for Trenton, 27.9 for Philadelphia, 40.1 for Vineland, New Jersey, 44 for Toms River, 47 for Long Branch, 47.6. I think that was the highest number. Okay? I mean, just the map alone with numbers like this right away should tell you that this is just such stupidity. It's bullshit. Excuse my language, but that's what it is. All right. And it's 10 days out, more than 10 days out. Uh, so you see this stuff, people post it. They think that by posting a disclaimer saying it's not a forecast, it gets them off the hook, and it doesn't. I think it's, seriously. I mean, look, we both know why they're doing it. They're doing it to get clicks. They're doing it to get likes, and you do get push people on those pages. You do get a lot of people that push back on this and say, you put these maps up all the time and they're all BS. All right. I would like to believe, and I think I can safely say that the folks that watch this podcast know how we feel about this sort of stuff. I mean, look, it's weather porn, okay? And I get it, but as a forecast tool, it has no value and it has no sense. It has no place in the reality of what we're looking at over any forecast period. So you know what? Just remember that you see something in the long range, you see a snow map in the long range, ignore it. When you look at the upper air maps, which I think are the ones that are the most important, even the operational, even the surface maps, you could take with a huge, a salt mine's worth of salt. You want to look at the upper air and just get a flavor for what the upper flow is to see if system of any kind is even possible, let alone, this silliness that was put up today by the 12Z GFS. But it just, I saw this and I just laughed out loud. I couldn't laugh loud enough. And it's only mid-December and we're doing this.
Well, I laughed at you pinged me on Messenger.
Yes.
You,
I'm
and
a
you actually
pinging
sent me,
I'm a pinging sort of person.
I mean, when Joe sent me this morning, you sent me it at 11:56 a.m. The map that you just showed from Pivotal Weather, and you said, and so it begins,
Yes.
GFS today,
Right.
and ridiculous. And I said, well, at least there's no 50 inches in Boston.
Right.
He said, no, this time it's New Jersey. He
Right.
said, and
Exactly.
I said that's in order to keep the recent drone activity down.
Right. By the
And then
way,
and then you followed up by saying, yes, objection, Your Honor. The GFS is the GFS is incompetent, irrelevant, and immaterial, and it calls for a conclusion from the witness. And then you followed up with, since it's coming up to the European, again, this is around midday. He said court is adjourned until after 5
well, you
p.m.
know what I noticed? I always knew it, but for some reason it's starting to strike me even more when I'm watching them now. It's like the, the judge calls for an adjournment at least at least once every show. The judge, just as they're coming up to a critical time, they'll just say, you know, it's coming. You know what's on the judge's mind. He wants to eat, so he says, "Oh, you know what? It's coming up on the lunch hour, so we'll adjourn to 2:30." And I'm thinking, 2.5 hour lunch? It's 12 o'clock. You're taking a 2.5 hour lunch? I should be in that union. Yeah.
Well, wasn't it in the movie My Cousin Vinny when Fred Gwynn tells well, who was the lawyer with the who's doing the case for his cousin? He said he says you have a 90-minute the facts that will reveal whether or not he's telling the truth will be arriving at 3 o'clock. He said so you have a 90-minute um, state of
Execution.
whatever. He said that's he said unless you happen to win this case by 3 o'clock. So
Right.
why don't you have some lunch?
Um, Johnny Quest, thanks for hitting super chat. Yes, that's almost as bad as the category for a hurricane that's being referred to as a potential tropical cyclone. Uh, well, for some reason, and maybe Levi's having trouble updating, but this is in the Indian Ocean, and it's clipping northern Madagascar tonight, and then on its way to Mozambique in East Africa. And I bring it up because Johnny Quest messaged me today and said, "How come they're calling this potential tropical cyclone 4?" I mean, and you look at the loop; it's a strong Category 4 hurricane. It's actually called Chido, Chido, I believe it is. I did a little googling. The thing is that on tropical tidbits, and usually there's never this issue, but his where he's got it, he has it listed as potential tropical cyclone 4, and even the map that's on here, the forecast map, and I don't know what office this is referring to it as potential tropical cyclone 4. But I pulled up a news story that referred to it as a tropical cyclone Chido. So it does have a name. So it must be some sort of technical glitch that that Levi Cowan or Tropical Tidbits is having, and we totally understand that. But it was just sort of weird because when I looked at it, I said, "That's not a potential tropical cyclone; it's a Cat 4." You know, 125 knot winds,
Munch bunch, munch a bunch of Cheetos,
those corn
tropical cyclone.
chips. Right, exactly. All right, so let's uh, let's roll along here now that I got my rant out of the way, and I used a bad word, and I'm sorry. Uh, so that's probably going to get me a nasty email
That's
from.
not, it's not even, on some, even on some stations I've seen on CNN, for example, they use that word,
Oh, well,
sometime.
I've
And
heard that. I've heard people say. Just this morning, I was watching uh, CNBC, and they had on the CEO of Oscar, which is um, a new health insurance company, and the former head of Aetna until he sold out to CVS. So the company was sold to CVS. Uh, Now runs this new company that he formed called Oscar, and was talking about the problems with the health insurance and all the rest of it. And he said pissed off. So, he said pissed off on the air. I just said pissed off on the air. Oh boy. So there. Yeah, I
well, yeah,
know this.
that eliminates two of the seven words that you can't say on television,
Well, the B word has
which are
they've been
harmful.
saying that on television for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I don't even think anybody cares anymore. David Fuller, thanks for hitting super chat. Yes, it was a Christmas gift in fantasy, just like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then it went away. So don't be surprised if it comes back, but uh, I got I I have yet to see a single one of these systems in the long range that far out become anywhere close to being reality in all the years that I've been doing this. I don't remember a single time where, something out at day 12 and day 13 became reality. So there's that. Uh, Watches and warnings tonight. We still got lake effect snow warnings in north central New York and southwestern New York and northwest Pennsylvania. We have still a few winter storm warnings up in northern Michigan. On the upper part of the lower peninsula and on the eastern part of the upper peninsula. Winter sweater advisories are up. Uh, in eastern Nebraska and across Iowa, a few counties in southern Minnesota, a few counties in northern Missouri, and a couple of counties in southeast South Dakota. Winter storm watches in some counties in southern Idaho. Winter storm warnings. Oh, they had winter weather advisories up for the Sierra Nevada show. They've upgraded them to a winter storm warning. Shall we see why?
Why not?
Why not? Okay, I'll bring this. I'm just taking a random point here. Um, So what are they going for? We'll pick up what the statement says. Winter storm warning from 10 p.m. this evening. I'm sorry, winter weather advisory till 10 p.m. this evening, then a winter storm warning from 4 a.m. Friday to 10 p.m. Saturday. So between 10 p.m. tonight and 4 a.m., there's nothing. Okay. 6 to 10, 1 to 3 feet on locally higher peaks, winds gusting as high as 55 miles an hour, and this includes the Bernie Basin, the eastern Shasta County, Shasta Lake area, northern Shasta County, the west slope of the northern Sierra Nevada, and the western Plumas County and Lassen Park counties. Okay. I guess those are places that I probably won't be going before I turn to dust. So anyhow, you can see that the also have wind advisories up in parts of Northern California, some winter weather advisories in the western mountains, just inland of San Francisco and points north. And we have a few winter weather advisories up in northern Idaho and in northern Washington state. On the loop tonight, as we go to the satellite loop, if I can get my mouse to work correctly. We have a windy day here today, Joe. I mean, for you, you had a pretty rather windy day. It was cold. It was in the 30s all day long. And
I can assure you it was windy. I can assure you it was cold. Why? Because Mr. Sweeney, my dog, actually our dog, my wife's dog and my dog, he likes to go out a lot. If I say, "Do you want to go out?" It's like asking him, is rice white?"
right,
He'll
yeah.
immediately the tail will start wagging. He'll start jumping up and down. And I must have taken him out 5 times today, and every single time I took him out, I had to go down the driveway into that gusty, blustery wind. Temperatures, I don't think got much higher than the mid 30s today, but it felt like it was in the 20s at least all through the course of the day. Bright sunshine for a good part of the day. It just was cold and windy. And tomorrow, maybe even a touch colder than today, but saving grace, the wind should be a lot less. So call tomorrow a less harsh day, and it will be bright and sunny.
Leon of Lindenhurst hit the tip jar tonight too. So did Steve Lapointe. Thank you for both of you. And Steve reminds everybody to hit the like button, as I always forget to tell you. So I'm telling you that Steve told you to hit the like button, because we always like it when we get to 100 likes, and we're up to 62. There's some subtropical moisture moving into New Mexico and Texas and moving east. There's an east-west band of clouds and light precipitation going on from eastern Nebraska and across Iowa through Illinois and Indiana. And of course, you've got the waves of moisture coming into the west now, and you can see some of that moisture moving up into Idaho and Washington and Oregon. And there's another plume that's moved into California. And you can see it on the radar out there. We've got rain that's moved inland, snow in the mountains, and same for points north. We got patches of precipitation all over the place. Here's this east-west streak. I don't know how much of this stuff is actually reaching the ground across Illinois and Indiana. It's not enough for them to put any advisories on, so it's probably just flurries. And then you've got a fairly strong lake effect band coming off Lake Ontario into north central New York, north of Syracuse, up in Jefferson County. And it looks like it's a narrow band, so I don't know if it quite reaches up to Watertown, but it's close. And also another band, and this one is coming over. Looks like Buffalo might be in this one. It's in the northern part of Lake Erie and coming into areas near and just south of Buffalo, right along the I-90 corridor there. So otherwise, radars are quiet up and down the East Coast and back through the Gulf states. Nothing about severe weather the next 3 days, so we're going to move on to precip, which takes us to next Thursday night, and we're looking at 3/4 of an inch to a little patch of an inch and a half for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. So that's good. By the way, Mr. Rayo,
Yes.
two things. Anna Patel Vlogs hit super chat. Thank you, and it's great to have you back on the chat board, Anna, after a long vacation. So I'm guess you're here for the winter. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for hitting the tip jar tonight. Um, oh, what was I going to say? I was just going to tell you something.
You
William Uber. He was on the chat board I think earlier. I don't know if he's still on, but so he's in Central Suffolk County. Okay, uh, and since since November, whatever that first date was in November after Thanksgiving, where we got the first rainfall, the first really heavy rainfall. Okay, um, I mean, I'm trying to remember, Joe. It rained Thanksgiving Day, correct?
yes, it
Okay,
did.
so from Thanksgiving Day through yesterday, he has picked up almost 8.5 inches of rain. So there are a lot of areas that have picked up a substantial amount of rain to cut into that deficit. Some areas may have already cut the deficit in half, and other areas may have already cut it by 2/3. So we have been really productive with these rain events, and it's probably likely that we're going to get some more next week. So that's a big positive. Now, the um, the drought monitor this week is not going to really tell us anything because it only goes out to Tuesday. But next week's drought monitor will probably be very interesting to see with regards to the status of the drought situation, just here in the in the Northeast, but most of the country. I think it was like 85% of the country was at least abnormally dry. So I think we're going to see some changes come next week.
Right. In fact, I didn't even look at the CPC today. The map, the drought map, again does not take into account the heavy rains of the last 24 to 36 hours because the data is collected up until Tuesday morning and then it's posted on Thursday. So what we had over the last 24 to 36 hours is not going to be inputted into that until we get to next week's drought monitor. So we should see some improvement, notable improvement by next Thursday. But tonight, from what I'm looking at right now, still, again, this is based upon up until Tuesday, still showing extreme drought over just about all of central and southern New Jersey. Also, extreme drought for a good swath of central and northeastern Massachusetts and just about everywhere else, Long Island,
You
New
can't
York
share that,
State, lower Hudson Valley. Oh, that's nice. All of these places are still in, I'll bring it up and you can see for
Might as
yourself.
well share it.
Here we go.
There
Yep,
you
there it
go.
is. You should be able to see it now.
It,
Uh,
it'll be up in there. It
just about
goes.
everywhere else in the tri-state area is in severe drought, and the extreme drought, the dark shades of red, again, as I said, central and southern New Jersey, and a swath of central and northeastern Massachusetts. But everywhere else, it's more or less just severe drought. You have to go way to the north to get just simply abnormally dry conditions, like up in the Adirondacks and in western and central New York. And of course, it's just abnormally dry there because they've had so much snow in these locations, lake effect snows that have been occurring in those sections of the Empire State. But as of Tuesday morning, we were in severe drought, and that area should shrink a bit based upon what happened over the last 24 to 36 hours. We won't know about that until the next drought map that is issued next week on Thursday.
Okay. All right. Let's run through what's going on in the upper air because that's always fun. And we've got another. I've rolled out too quickly here, but let's. let's go along. And uh, this was our trough that we just dealt with, and that's pulling out. We've got a weak shortwave that's approaching for Sunday night into early Monday, a stronger one behind that for Monday night into Tuesday, and then that goes out. And then we have a deeper trough phasing. This looks very much like what we just went through, by the way. This is for the end of next week. And the models are very bullish on this next cold front. It looks almost the same as what we just went through, and then that lifts up. The southern part of this trough drops down into the Gulf states, and this is the one. This is why the GFS went crazy with it. It just on the 12Z run, it was just way overdone. And with some troughing still in the east, going into Christmas and a little bit beyond that, it does suggest that there'll be deliveries of cold air. Not that they're going to stay, but they're going to come in and go out, and you'll probably warm up in between. It's an interesting pattern to be in. I mean, it's sort of the overall upper pattern is not terrible at all. In fact, if something times correctly, we could wind up with a snow event. But that's always the big question: is something trying to time correctly? And I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. But at least going forward, this cold air mass starts to pull out. You'll see the bigger temperature difference on Sunday versus Saturday because of the position of the high holding some colder air in on Saturday. And then we've got this weak system with a little bit of rain Sunday night into Monday, late Sunday night into Monday, and then a short break, and then you get a stronger push of rain coming in for Monday night and Tuesday. Then that goes out, and then if it's right with this phasing trough at the end of next week, I mean, when you look at this, Joe, it really does look like what happened yesterday, almost identical. A million southerly isobars ahead of it, a million northwesterly isobars behind it, a big cold 1050 plus high coming down with very cold air for the weekend of the 21st, 22nd. Again, there'll probably be some changes with this along the way, but uh, this does. If this does play out this way, that we get another solid big rain, that'll really start to drive a stake into the heart of a lot of the drought area. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Yes, I agree. And somebody on the chat board was saying, you mean after all of the heavy rains, we're still in a severe drought? Again, I stress that
Tuesday.
issue is only valid up until Tuesday morning. We didn't have any of the heavy rains that we've seen over the last 24 to 36 hours inputted into that map. We will have that inputted into the next map next Thursday. And by the way, between now and next Thursday, we have more rain coming on Monday and Tuesday. So there should be a dramatic improvement in many places. Not saying that we're going to be out of drought completely. No, that's not going to happen. But at least you'll be able to see that things are not quite as bad or as dire as they appear now on the current drought map.
All right, let's quickly run through Briller Jeopardy.
Okay, we will do that. I've got it tonight.
Okay, good.
And I might say, for those of you after the show, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is on tonight. And for the first time in I don't know, 50 years, Joe, it's on NBC. It started on NBC, and it was on NBC for about a decade, and then it went over to CBS for about 40 or 50 years, now went back to NBC again.
I'm sorry.
And the interesting thing about Rudolph now, it's 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, I know. They just padded it with commercials.
Well, they didn't just pad it with commercials, but they added stuff that has not been seen during the CBS years. And in fact, those of you fans of Rudolph may have always wondered why Yukon Cornelius throws his pickaxe up in the air, it comes down in the snow, and he takes it and he actually licks the end of the pickaxe and he says nothing, nothing every time. And you say to yourself, well, why is he licking his pickaxe? But finally you get to see why, because they've inserted back into the program the part that was exercised out by CBS, I guess, and that is that when it lands on the ground, this is toward the end of the show now,
Right.
he licks the end of the pickaxe and he says, peppermint, peppermint. And then he says, I've discovered a peppermint mine. And
And
that,
they took
that
and
had to
they
be,
why did they take that out? What was so offensive about it?
I think the reason is, and this is not known by too many people, the first year, 1964, that program, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, came on the air, at the end of the show, they didn't show what happened to the island of misfit toys. Santa Claus just flew up out into space, and
Well,
the
they all got into his bag. They all got into his bag
no, no, no,
and
no,
went
they,
on.
no, no. They in the original, he flies from his castle in the North Pole, and that's it. He doesn't go. He doesn't go to the island of misfit toys. At
Oh,
least
so
he.
they added the Island of Misfit Toys
There
later
was
on?
such there was such a tremendous blowback. People saying, "Well, what happened to the island of misfit toys?
Oh,
What happened to Dolly for Sue and Charlie in the box or whatever?" He promised to
Charlie
do
in the
it.
box.
So
Nobody
they
wants to play with a Charlie in the box.
so apparently what they had to do, Rankin Bass, I think, was the production company, and also General Electric. The show originally was called the General Electric Fantasy Hour in 1964. So they all had to come back, and they said, we got to do a new ending. We've got to add the Misfit toys in, so that all these people don't get mad at us again. And in the process of doing that, they said, okay, if we add this, we got to cut some things out. And one of the things that they cut out was the part at the end where Yukon Cornelius discovers a peppermint mine at the end of the show. But that's back in. So once I shut up tonight and we do Briller Jeopardy, you can go and watch it on NBC, and you'll be able to see at the very end that is something that has not been seen in all of these years when it was on CBS. They stuck it back in, and it makes for an extra 50 minutes. Of course, the extra 50 minutes also is made up of commercials, as you probably
Right,
would
exactly.
suspect. So,
All right.
anyway, Briller Jeopardy tonight. And here we go. Average high temperatures in December. And we start with the average high temperature at Central Park for the month of December, Joe.
I thought we did this the other day.
Did we?
Yeah.
10:45 a.m. Apparently he sent this. Oh, wait a minute. Briller Jeopardy. Yeah, you know what? You know what? He sent it a second time.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't
So
think
this
I
is-
do. Did
All
I
of these,
get?
yeah, all of these are the. So we did this already, but he sent it a second time. He sent the first time he sent it Wednesday 8:43 p.m. and now he sent it again at 10:45 this morning.
All right. So he'll
Two
send
questions.
the next one. He sends. We'll hold for Sunday.
Whatever.
William Uber is hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Bill, and thanks for that little stat. By the way, it was a big deal. Everybody's putting numbers up. Okay, that we already did that. It's all done. We did it. All right. So we are approaching any exciting plans for the weekend? Oh, you
Yes.
have to put. You're gonna finally put up those darn Christmas lights of yours, aren't you?
Tomorrow, Frosty and Santa come out of the box. Tomorrow, the two old reindeer will make their final appearance on our lawn. They will not be seen again after this Christmas. And we will add to that three other reindeer, a mommy and a poppy and a little baby reindeer. So we'll have five reindeer this year. And then on Saturday, we will commence to climb the big ladder and string up the lights that go to the peak at the top of the roof of the house, and add the wreath and everything else, and it'll all be done. It'll all be
All
done
right.
by the end of this weekend. Thank God.
Do
It's
you have
also
you?
actually the latest that I've ever.
May I? Yeah, I was going to say it is pretty late. You should have put them up when you had those warm days. Just, oh,
No,
just should have done it.
no,
No, can't do it.
no. You're not
Um,
married. You're not married to the executive producer.
right. So now you're going to have to. Might I suggest that you book a takedown date now?
We'll see. You know, one year, I don't think we took the reindeer. Put him back until March, and the reason is I think that was one winter we had so much snow.
Yeah, it was probably 13, 14.
We just couldn't. We had to leave him out there.
Yeah, I
We
was
were sitting out
probably
there until the snow melted.
it was
Yeah,
probably 13, 14 because I had snow cover on Long Island that year on Christmas Day, Christmas. Um, and there was no opportunity really to take them down. I had the same issue. Uh, didn't take them down until March because I couldn't get to them. They were so caked in ice and snow for virtually 3 months, which is so unusual.
right.
But uh, you know,
Now, you know,
first world problems.
for those of you who are not interested in this story, you can leave. Or you're permitted to go and you can watch Rudolph or do anything else. But for those of you who are interested, yesterday, and you were the first to tell me about this, Joe, it was the death of the amazing Kreskin. And it was after you told me that, and I thought about it, that it brought back a memory from my radio days. And I think you and some people out there might be interested in hearing it. I put this on Facebook, so you could read the story on my Facebook page. But about 40 years ago, I was doing the weather for a radio station in Binghamton, New York. It was 1430 WENE, and their morning drive host was a gentleman by the name of Tom Carroll. And besides being a radio personality, he was also a TV film actor and commercial spokesman. And before going on the air to do the weather, the radio stations would call in to the weather office where I worked. The phone would ring, I'd pick up, and whoever it was said, "Hey, hi Joe, how you doing?" Blah 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 blah. And we'd chat for a few minutes before we actually would go live on the air. And that's what I used to do with Tom. I'd chat with him for a minute or two, and on most occasions, Tom Carroll was a very upbeat, a very funny person. But on one particular morning, he was in a low mood. And when I asked him what was bothering him, he said, "The amazing Kreskin is going to appear this weekend at the Broome County Center." Broome County was where Binghamton is in central New York. He said, "I really wanted to do a phone interview with him in advance of his show. I tried to contact him a few times, but I was told by his publicist that he doesn't do radio interviews. So the only thing he does is like television." So as it turned out, a few days before this conversation, I caught Kreskin locally on Channel 5 here in New York on a TV show hosted by Bill Boggs. You remember that? It was Midday New York.
Yeah, I remember.
And Kreskin was on the show with Bill Boggs, and he spent much of that interview talking not about really himself, but about the legendary radio and TV broadcaster and entertainer Arthur Godfrey. How are you? How are you? How are you? Who had just died. He recently had died back sometime in the early or mid 80s. And Kreskin had just written a book in which he had mentioned how Arthur Godfrey played a tremendous influence in his life. And after Godfrey died, personal items were gifted to him by Godfrey's estate. So he was a very important person, Arthur Godfrey was to Kreskin. So I suggested to Tom Carroll, why don't you call the publicist back, Kreskin's publicist, and say, you want to talk about Arthur Godfrey. You don't want to talk about Kreskin or doing psychic things or whatever. You just want to talk about Kreskin, about the life of Arthur Godfrey. And I said, of course, if that intrigues Kreskin enough to have you speak with him, then perhaps you can gradually lead into the show that he'll be doing that weekend. So Tom said he would take my advice. Later that afternoon, just as I'm literally going out the door and going back home now, after working the whole day there, the phone rings and it was Tom, who was ecstatic. He's on the phone. I could probably hold the phone 6 feet away from my ear. It worked! It worked! And I said, Kreskin's going to do the interview with you? He said, not going to. I just finished talking with him. We recorded it. We chatted for over 10 minutes. I'm going to chop it up now into several segments. I'm going to play them on my Friday show. He said, Joe, how could I ever thank you? And as it turned out, later that year at Christmas time, WENE ran a contest. Winners of the contest would be bussed into Manhattan. It was a pretty long bus ride from Binghamton to Manhattan, but they would bust into Manhattan for a dinner at a very fine restaurant. Then they would be treated to an exclusive tour of Rockefeller Center, including seeing the big tree, and then that would be followed by orchestra seats at Radio City Music Hall for the famous Christmas show. And it was scheduled for a Saturday night in December, and Tom told me, don't make any plans for that night because you and Renata are going to be my guests. And he said it'll be a bonus for the contest winners to meet you in person, and for me as well. I've never met Tom in person. And he said, consider this my gift for you to helping me get the Kreskin interview.
That's
So
nice.
that was the result of that. Now, To finish off, Tom Carroll was a great friend. I lost track of him, though, after he left WENE in 1989. But nonetheless, he carved a niche for himself in San Francisco. He was
Oh,
play-
nice.
he was playing Bozo the Clown
Oh,
on
God.
his daily TV show KEMO TV in San Francisco, and he endured the wrath of a kid who lost a Bozo contest. They had used to contest, kids would win prizes, and one of the kids lost the prize or chance of winning the big prize that day. And he turns around to Tom Carroll as Bozo, and he says, "Well, I'm going to use a different what what he actually said. I cannot say here on the air, but he told Tom, 'Cram it,' and made an obscene gesture with the middle finger." And that made local and national headlines. They picked up on the story, and needless to say, Tom Carroll made broadcast history. Tom died in 2001 at the age of 69, but still remember him today, all these years later. And again, when you mentioned Kreskin passing away yesterday, it immediately popped into my head about the Kreskin story and Tom Carroll. But
Nice.
can you imagine the kid? Here's Bozo, like, "Oh no, that's a Bozo, no, no."
That is funny. By the way, Brandon Doherty, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight. As always, greatly appreciated. And you can, as we sign off on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, Joe, you should ring the bell for 100 likes.
Yes, there you go. Thank
Yippee.
you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, folks. So we're going to be back Sunday at 7:35 p.m. And I guess I'll give you a little bit of a heads up because we're probably going to take some days off around Christmas, unless there's some surprise snowstorm. Uh, we may take a few days off around Christmas Day, around Christmas time. So we'll let you know about that next week. All right. Have a great night, a great weekend. We'll see you Sunday night. Night, night.
99